can't do it. Suck in.
It's going.
It is right now?
Yeah.
If this goes on the blooper reel, you are toast. Well, hi Cove, Dan Baumgartner here with another midweek update on a nice spring Wednesday. We're here again at home, again, as you are. And this would be the dining room. I don't think we've done one of these in the dining room yet. I've got a couple things I want to talk to you about. But first, Anne has an update on the Deer Cove art project.
Hi Cove, how you doing? Hey, I want to give you an update on Deer Cove because we went out to the post box at the Cove after the weekend. There was a whole stack of cards from you. So excellent job. I want to refresh those that don't know about the project. We are making postcards, 4x6, postcard stamp or regular stamp, sending them into the Cove. They have encouraging messages, poems, pictures, artwork, just something you find. You don't have to make anything. And then you're sending it in with your own return address. And we are taking those and re-stickering them and readdressing and covering all the postal marks up and sending them out to different people. And then you get back one from someone else. So you wait and see what you get. If you want to keep doing this and you like it, just keep sending in new ones. We're thrilled to get them. So it's been really fun. I think it's going to keep going. And I've heard from a lot of you that I haven't even seen in here yet. So I'm excited to see what keeps coming. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with all those?
I'm heading to the post office now. So see you later. Bye.
You know, on the phone calls and Zoom calls and FaceTime calls I have, a lot of times those conversations start with, so how you doing? And I have to say I don't always know how to answer that question because we're in such an odd season and I really miss seeing all of you in person, face to face. It's easier for me to answer the question, what have you been doing? So as I thought about that a little bit, Anne and I, who are really not television watchers at all, other than back in the old days, I used to watch quite a bit of sports on TV. But we actually are catching up on one show. Most of you have seen it. It's old now, but The Crown. So we just finished the first season of The Crown, so we got a long way to go to catch up with that. We're having fun with that. I've been doing a lot of reading. Just finished one book called The Decadent Society. That's by Ross Douthat, who's a columnist for the New York Times. And I just started in with a book called On the Road with St. Augustine. And that's by James K.A. Smith. And that is pretty intriguing, at least in the first pages. I'm also reading a book of poetry, older poetry from Robert Frost called North of Boston, which is great fun. Besides that, we've been exercising, both been running a lot. I've been on my bike quite a bit. Took a bike ride out Fought Road by the church through the vineyards. That was fun the other day. A lot of Zoom calls for church-related things. Also, a lot of Zoom calls with our family, and especially with our kids, and especially our East Coast kids. One in New Jersey, one in New York City. Been staying pretty up to date with them. And last week, we actually figured out how to play a game with some of the kids called Code Names. Again, older game, but we figured out how we could sort of do that over Zoom, so that was fun. Hey, when I was in college, I spent a few weekends on staff at some camps, some Young Life camps, so we were just washing dishes and prepping food and those kinds of things. But on one of those work crew kind of weekends, our boss, our leader, had us memorize a particular Bible verse. It was Zephaniah 3:17. Zephaniah 3:17. And when they first asked us to memorize that together, I actually thought it was one of those jokes, one of those Bible jokes, like, find something in the book of Hezekiah. But there's, of course, not a book of Hezekiah. There is a king in the Old Testament named Hezekiah, but no book. I had never even heard of Zephaniah. But Zephaniah is in there. It's a very small book. It's buried towards the end of the Old Testament in the minor prophets, Zephaniah 3:17. And I memorized it way back in the day. And then years and years later, when I became a pastor, it became a very important verse for me. I began to use it sometimes as benedictions, which I have all these years, and I still occasionally use it at the Cove. When we were at our church in Seattle, I had one of our elders who was doing some mission work and ended up over in the Nepal, Tibet kind of area. And she actually, you can see this hanging right here, this beautiful calligraphy, which you don't recognize the language unless I'm missing my guess. But it's written in Tibetan script. And it was done by an elder in a small village in Tibet. And she asked him to write out Zephaniah 3:17. And it's just beautiful. It looks like a piece of artwork. And then in our family, Zephaniah 3:17 has been a very, very important verse for us. We have prayed it for our kids, in particular when we dropped off each of our 3 kids for their initial go at college. We prayed those verses over them, and at different times and different places, it just has seemed like such an applicable thing. So here's what I want to encourage you to do today, and that is to memorize this with me. The great thing about being able to pause these little videos is you could grab a pen and paper right now if you need to. If you need to put me on pause, feel free. Grab a pen and paper, and then you can write this down and work on it a little bit. It's a very easy verse to memorize. There's exactly 5 lines to it, and it sounds like this. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. Now that's the older 1984 version of the New International Version, NIV. Let me say it again. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. And I just love that verse because it says so much about who God is, about who we are, about God's heart for us. And some of the verses are even hard for us to imagine that God would take delight in us, that he would rejoice over us. But that's exactly what it says. So be encouraged on this day. And if you'll just work at memorizing that verse, just 5 lines, I bet within a week's time you would have it down. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. God bless, and see you soon.